Hello, it's John Ebrington here. Thanks for joining me in today's video, and I'm going to talk about community service. I was back in the 1980s when I first joined the probation service. I was indeed a supervisor of people working on community service projects, and then later in the 1980s and the early 1990s, I was a community service officer and I organised projects in my local community. So I just want to talk about things from my perspective and some of my viewpoints of having been a community service officer. So first of all, I think I would say that I found the job quite rewarding. It was tough in that you had to chase people up and make sure that they attended, and if they didn't, you had to instigate disciplinary proceedings against them, and if they continued not to turn up, you had to take them back to court. So that was a big part of the job, actually, was you had to really be able to prove that you properly instructed them and that they failed to attend without a reasonable excuse. So, and you had to have proof. So it was quite involved, but for me, it was quite enjoyable and really lovely to do much needed work in the local community that otherwise wouldn't be done. So the whole point of community service is that you're doing work that wouldn't be done normally. You're not taking away people's jobs by providing community service workers. You are doing work that's unpaid, and you're not replacing a paid post, but you're adding, and you're helping non-profit organisations. So when I started out, we used to do a lot of redecorating and refurbishing of village halls, scout halls, that kind of thing. We used to go around gardening for pensioners that couldn't keep control of their, often would be like jungle clearance of overgrown gardens of the elderly. And then, so you had people, you carefully selected them and you put them in various groups. And some people who maybe, like, for example, there was a university girl who had made a false statement following an accident, which is a serious offence, but she presented no real risk. And I had her work in a women's refuge. You know, I contacted the women's refuge and she was worked there. Other people maybe work in a charity shop, and there's a lot of positivity, not only for the charity getting some good work done, but the person can develop and improve their self-esteem and cope and things like that, and really do well, you know, and do some positive work for the communities is quite good. So it's the idea of community service is that it's a productive punishment, really, that you're doing something worthwhile. So anyway, it started in the 1970s, and my perception of it, you know, in the 1980s was that it was started really as a strict alternative to custody. That's how it started. But in practice, it didn't really happen like that from my perspective. So during the 1980s, my feeling was it became a bit of a two-tier order, that if you got a community service order from the Crown Court, it was a strict alternative to custody. And if you didn't do it, the judge would see you, the judge would see the person again and make sure that that if they felt that they hadn't done it properly and that they willfully avoided doing the order, they would send them to prison. But this wasn't the case in the Magistrates Court. So, I mean, in the early days, about 240 hours imposed was the equivalent of about a year in prison. So 120 was about 6 months. But this was the Crown Court. But in the Magistrates, what I felt started to happen was a bit of a devaluation of the scheme, in that the magistrates began to impose quite lengthy sentences on lesser offenders. And when they breached, they wouldn't be going to prison. No, they had to pay a small fine, or later, because it became quite a problem, they were able to add more hours. But this was later, back in the 1990s. So you can see that a pattern began to develop. The other thing that's happened over the years is that there's been a remarketing of community service on many occasions by the politicians. And as if like you get one party win an election and then you get a new batch of politicians coming in, and the Home Office minister you get can make a huge impact on your life. And they start imposing their ideas upon you. Years ago, they used to issue white papers and consult with you, but it's no longer really the practice of politicians to do that. They often just impose what they want you to do without any consultation, particularly with grassroots professionals. And I think that can be a bit frustrating. So what happened was they thought, oh, we must remarket this community service. It's not really acting as a alternative to custody. We need to stop. Our prisons are full. We need to get more people on community service. Instead of calling it community service, let's call it community punishment orders. Carries on, no real change. And then you get a new batch of politicians in and they go, oh, no, let's repackage it. Let's make it sound tougher. Let's call it hard unpaid work. So they start making it unpaid work condition. So you could now get unpaid work, community service, plus other things. So you could be on a curfew, you could be... So gradually, the scheme got even more devalued, if you like, and for lesser offenders started getting unpaid work and supervision, and they started getting tagging as well, and maybe drug testing, and and at the same time, of course, resources towards a probation service, whilst using them more, was probably being reduced. So, probation were having to find ways and means of doing more for less money. Do the public care? Do politicians care? I don't know. So again, they thought another lot came in and said, hardly anybody seems to know about this community service. Nobody's taking it. It's not being utilised enough instead of prison. Let's make it more visible. Let's make it more open as to what it is. We'll have them wearing fluorescent jackets when they're working, and we'll put plaques, unpaid workers working here for the community, and we'll call it community payback. So there you are. And I remember one minister said, the way they enforce orders, they need to be more simplistic. They need to be like dealing with footballers, with yellow cards and red cards. We'll have the community service officers sending out yellow letters on yellow paper, and then we'll send out letters on red paper. And then they said, oh no, we don't want them to give so many occasions of warnings. We'll reduce them and they can go back to court even quicker. So we bought in loads of red paper, and then we had stacks of it, and we didn't really have opportunity to send out red letters anymore. They were all yellow. So my kind of plea is that I wish politicians were a bit more like the old days, like Winston Churchill used to do. He used to really enjoy and relish going to talk to people upon the shop floor who knew about the work and say, what do you suggest? And I really would encourage politicians to consult more with the professionals, to go and visit them, go and ask them for solutions, ask them their ideas, find out from them, rather than impose willy-nilly ideas like red and yellow paper and stuff like that. Talk to us first, Anyway, I'm retired from all of that now. So, but anyway, I hope you found this video interesting. But there you go. Community service has changed name about 5 times, but to be honest with you, it basically remains the same. It's gone up to about 300 odd hours now that they can impose. But has it made an impact on reducing the prison population? Do you know, I doubt it really. But has it brought more work upon the probation service? For sure, yes. Is community service worthwhile? I passionately think so. You know, I was involved as a community service officer with a whole variety of work that we did for the community, you know, litter picking, gardening. We used to work up on a nature reserve. We helped in my day, we used to help in homes for the elderly quite a lot. And, you know, the staff that worked there were very carefully selected, but, you know, that work was very worthwhile. We even went into a psychiatric hospital, and you had these huge alpha male types going into the psychiatric hospital, and they became less alpha male and they became quite small little mice inside the psychiatric hospital, whatever work we were doing. One really good project that we used to do was we had a van and we used to go around and pick up donated furniture, and they went into a store and it helped. This store was given out to people, furniture was given out to needy people who are starting up home. So, you know, terrific community projects that probably don't get spoken about enough credit for the work that's done. And there are lots of them. I see, you know, even though I'm long retired, I see some community service people doing brilliant work in my area. They look after the local cemetery, they paint up the railings, they keep the cemetery nice and clean. And all that kind of thing is respectful and worthwhile. And for me, much more productive than just sitting 6 months in a prison cell and actually probably getting worse. Okay, so anyway, all the very best, and please look out for my book. It's called You the Sentencer, and What Would You Do? And it's available if you look on Amazon UK, you'll find it there. Anyway, all the very best, and thank you for looking in. Bye-bye.